Hello and welcome back to Norwich Talk for another reaction type video. We're going to be reacting to Norwich City's announcement this morning. That was the signing of Kieran Dowell. Now, I'm sure that's a name I'm pretty sure we all recognise. He's been sort of a youth prospect for quite some time now, it feels like anyway. But in this video, I'm going to go over what we know about him and what I think he'll bring to Norwich City, because I think he's a very interesting signing. I think it's a statement of intent from Norwich City, perhaps, in terms of this big shift in personnel that we're probably expecting at the club. Now, in terms of what we know about him, we know he's 22 years old. He's English. His primary position is playing in cam or central attacking mid, whatever you want to call it, behind the striker, but he can play left and right. My information mostly comes from the website Transfer Market, which are pretty good for pointing out where a player often plays. He's also 6 foot tall, which is interesting, and I'll link that to a point a little bit later in the video as to why I think Norwich City might be signing him. He's played for England under-16s through to their 21s, which is pretty good. As I always talk about, sort of any international experience at any level is always invaluable to a player, but I'm not here to rant about that today. He's been a youngster at Everton for a while. That's where we signed him from, obviously. He's played 76 games overall in the Championship, which really signifies that Norwich City are going down to the Championship, and I think Championship experience is going to be vital to getting back into the Premier League, or just being successful in the Championship, of course. There's a sort of debate around what success actually is, and what success will be for Norwich City next season. But he's played 76 games in the Championship, which is good. I think Stuart Webber there might be learning a lesson about signing players. Not from, he can sign his players from afar, but also getting some here who have that experience who can help get Norwich City back in the Premier League, which is the end game of this project. That Championship experience comes in from a few clubs. From Nottingham Forest in 17-18, he played a full season there. He's played for Sheffield United, played a part. I say played a part. I don't know if it was a key part or not in their promotion campaign last season. He played a little bit of this season, or the season just gone now technically, at Derby, and he finished his season off at Wigan. Most noticeably scoring a hat-trick in that 8-0 game against Hull recently. That sort of blew everyone's minds. Obviously, it's quite sad what's going on at Wigan, but we're not here to talk about that. But it's interesting that he scored a hat-trick against Hull. I'm sure that would have done his confidence a world of good, and confidence is a word that I band about very, very often, and I probably will continue to for the rest of my time on this YouTube channel. Now, in terms of the actual signing itself, I'd say I'm excited, but I don't know too much about him. I've not actually seen him play. I can't remember watching him play. But at the same time, I am excited because it's a Stuart Webber signing, and I still trust him to make the right signing. Now, the thing that is most interesting to me is the fact that he's 6 foot tall. And now, the thing with Norwich's number 10s is that we've had the most success with the taller players recently. Obviously, Marco Stiepermann being the only one, because there's this idea that he has this physical presence that allows him to sort of bring other players into the game, and Timu Pukki had massive success from it. And I think Marco Stiepermann's 6'2", 6'1", something like that. So it's very interesting that Kieran Dowell comes in at 6 foot, 7 years younger as well. To perhaps maybe fill that role that Marco Stiepermann plays, whether that's to replace him or to give sort of a bit of competition or just a general addition. I'd probably choose for the idea of it's replacing him, because as I mentioned, he's 7 years younger. He's 23 in October, but he's still considerably younger than Marco Stiepermann. He's got more Championship experience, which I don't want to sort of compare the two players technically, which I think seems a bit wild. I thought about it in my head then, but I think that is a bit wild. But I think it's the age is a massive factor. Also the fact he's homegrown as well, because Norwich City do need to sort of focus on the homegrown rule now they're back down in the Championship. I think in terms of his experiences from other clubs, the one that I look at the most is probably Nottingham Forest a couple of years ago, because it was a full season, and at that age, at the time, he would have been 19, 20 years old. As soon as you can get a full season of experience under your belt, we know how important that is for a player's development. You look at a player like Max Aarons, who for me, out of Norwich's assets, is probably the best. Emi Buendia as well. He's not homegrown, but he's still very, very young. I think he's a year older than Kieran Dowell, but at the time when he got that full season of experience in the Championship, he was 21, wasn't he? So I think the sooner you can get that sort of experience, the more you can get used to the league, and get ready for it. You look at the clubs as well, Derby as well, Wigan, Sheffield United, Forest. It's sort of a variety of styles of football. I think Derby try and play football with Cocu as their manager. I don't think that's gone brilliantly for them. Wigan, I think Paul Cook likes to play good football. I read quite a lot about Paul Cook and how there's this preconceived idea that if he wasn't sort of English and looked the way he did, as brutal as that sounds, he would be far more popular. But I think it genuinely interests me the most in terms of his time at Wigan, I suppose, as well, rather than Forest, because this is his most recent experience in the Championship. In the 2019-20 season, he played for Derby and Wigan, as I mentioned, and he played 10 games for Derby and got 1 assist, and he was, I think Everton cancelled his loan, sent him to Wigan, of which where he played 12 games, 5 goals, 2 assists, 3 of them goals coming against Hull in an 8-0 win, which I'm sure he will have enjoyed. But yeah, I genuinely, that is all we know about him, according to my notes as well. But I think the things that I take from this signing are the fact that he's probably, I just don't know whether he'll start or not, but I think he is probably a replacement for Marco Stiepermann, because you look at the age, the fact he's homegrown as well, the fact that physically he's quite similar to Marco Stiepermann. He's got a lot more Championship experience. That experience is probably a bit different to Marco Stiepermann's, because his is winning the Championship. But yeah, for me it's a really interesting signing. I think the main thing, as I said now 3 or 4 times, is that he probably is a Marco Stiepermann replacement, which is probably fair enough. I don't think that Norwich have any time or room to consider sort of this idea of living off sentiment of previous seasons. Now, it's a difficult thing for me to say, to be honest with you, because I'm such a fan of Marco Stiepermann, and I'm one of them people this season who said that we should have given him a fairer crack at the whip, because last season, or I say last season, the 18-19 season, he really warranted that place in the starting lineup, because he came into the team, he was this very unorthodox player, and he did so well for Norwich, and he was a massive part of the goal scoring. Not only did he contribute towards goals, but he scored a lot as well, and when I say contribute, I mean like assists, but he scored quite a few goals. He was pretty good at sort of shifting the ball nicely onto his left foot and scoring from the outside of the box. He also had sort of twinkle toes at times, which is it was really bizarre to watch, because you don't often associate a player who's sort of his height and physicality to have that sort of ability on the ball, but he had it. But equally, this season, he's not been able to find his form. And in the Premier League, you've got to find your form, otherwise you get dropped, because it's really tough, because there's this idea at Norwich, and this is where I thought Graham Potter would probably fail at Brighton, in terms of this idea that you don't have much time to adapt. And Marco Stiepermann, that's been the downfall of his season. He hasn't adapted quick enough. He's had some bright moments earlier in the season, but equally, he's also ballooned like a good 15 shots well over the bar. If half of them had gone in, he'd have been a completely different player. But at the same time, this could possibly be just an addition to Norwich City's team rather than a replacement for Marco Stiepermann. But it'll be interesting nonetheless. I can see Kieran Dowell playing just because he's young and English, and we know what Daniel Farke is like in terms of sort of developing younger players. You look at recent links with players like Max Aarons to Bayern Munich. That's just an example of how Norwich City can develop players well enough to be touted with Bayern Munich. How credible that rumour is, we don't know. But at the same time, it's something Norwich City could probably use to their advantage in terms of showing younger players that they can develop these sort of players. But yeah, that's probably just about everything for Kieran Dowell. I'm excited just because it's a Norwich City signing. We've obviously seen a fair few. It's nice to not make a speculation video, because we've made a few in the past. Thankfully, I think we're 4 for 5 in terms of the speculation videos. Dennis Mann being the one who won't join, quite obviously in a fairly dramatic fashion, according to social media and sort of the local journalists. But yeah, that's probably all my thoughts on Kieran Dowell. I'm very keen to know your thoughts. What do you think he'll bring to Norwich City? Why do you think he's been signed? My main question to you is he a replacement for Marco Stiepermann? And that's just about everything. If you could check the description box down below, I'll be very grateful. We've got the review coming out later today, the first one with Connor and Dave Freezer. We've also got a few more coming out. I think the schedule's going to be so today, next Monday, next Thursday, Monday after, and then we're done with this season. We can focus on the next, because it is a fairly tight turnaround in compared to the usual schedule, because the usual schedule doesn't sort of have to deal with the global pandemic. But here we are. We make do with what we've got. So yeah, if you can like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, I'll be very, very grateful. Help us get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. And until next time, I'll see you again very, very soon.